Streaming live via the internet. Welcome to Streaming live via the internet. Welcome to ISP Radio, your weekly source for ISP-related news, events, and interviews with industry experts. If you deliver internet via fiber optic, wireless, coax, or any other way, you're in the right place. Chat live with us weekly via ispradio.com every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Central Time. And now a brief word from our sponsors. Link Technologies, providing ISP consulting, support, and hardware for wireless ISPs. TowerCoverage.com, providing online RF coverage maps. Mimosa Networks, providing high-density, high-bandwidth radio products. Advanced LLC, providing retail and wholesale advanced communication services by matching providers with your bandwidth needs. And by Sitel, providing reliability in surge suppression. And now your host for ISP Radio, Steve Grabiel and Dennis Burgett.
Welcome to another edition of ISP Radio. I'm your host, Steve Grabiel, and today I'm broadcasting from the home office in Seal Beach, California. And my co-host, Dennis, and producer of the show, is broadcasting from St. Louis, Missouri. You there, Dennis?
I am here.
Yeah, it sounds like talking to you earlier in the show. Nothing's changed as in weather out in your neck of the woods. It's except
more
world
rain.
Record rain, right?
Yeah, more rain.
Well, at least it proves that microtics can survive in underwater conditions.
Oh yeah. We've had actually it's an official wettest June on record for St. Louis. So. We had 13.14 inches, about 9 inches normal. And the previous record, which was in 2003, was only 12.35 inches. So we literally, in all of recorded history, last month was a record month.
Right, because now is July 1st, so June is a wrap.
Yes. It's a very
Thank goodness, and it's getting hot out here, getting ready for 4th of July. Looking forward to that out here. A lot of neat things to see when you're in California. When you're down in Southern California, they have quite a fireworks show off at the piers down near where they load and offload the boats and stuff, and that's quite spectacular. Any decent fireworks shows in St. Louis?
Well, St. Louis has the VP Fair. The VP Fair is typically... I believe it's considered the second largest fireworks show in the country.
Cool.
So, very, very big if you want to go downtown and see the VP Fair.
Do they launch them at the Arch?
They used to, but Arch has been the Arch grounds have been under construction. So I believe it's over at the. I don't remember the name of it now. To be honest with you, I don't really go down there because it's a lot of people. I mean, it is a lot of people.
Mob scene.
But definitely, I mean, lots of they have a huge event and lots of people down there. They call it Fair St. Louis, so it's not really the VP Fair anymore. They got zip lines down there. They have a whole bunch of people on the stage.
Just a good time.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really big event, and they actually claim it as the nation's largest 4th of July celebration.
Way cool.
I don't know if that's the true thing, but it is in Forest Park, so it's not downtown. It is still downtown, but it is not of the right downtown in front of that. But that's only because the Arch grounds is under construction, and it's actually quite nice because the Arch grounds, when that gets completed, will actually have a lot more room to even host more people. So,
well, real cool.
Yeah.
So, pretty quiet on my end, and as regards to news, anything you heard on the grapevine? I do know that today I am going to sign up for my Wispalooza trip and get that all squared away and save myself some money. Any other stuff out there, Dennis?
Well, I mean, for those of you that don't know, Wispalooza is definitely coming up. You definitely need to get involved with that, and actually some of the discounts for that actually are going to go away July 12th. So you only got 12 more days to register at the lowest rate possible for your full conference pass. So make sure you get online, make sure you register it. I actually registered myself, actually earlier this week, And it was a very simple process, very easy to do. Make sure you do that. $329 is the full conference pass for members before July 12th. So make sure you get and do that. If you don't do that, it immediately goes up to $379. So, again, it saves you a little bit of money and keeps you going. This year, WISPAPalooza is going to be at the Rio Hotel in Las Vegas, October 10th through October 17th. The main event, this is the actual WISPAPalooza, runs from the Tuesday, October 13th through Thursday, October 15th. Make sure you get in there on the 12th at the very latest, because usually there is some type of opening event that most people will enjoy. For those of you that are deploying fiber, there is a fiber weekend coming up. That weekend is the weekend, obviously, right before the WISPAPalooza, starting on the 10th. So that agenda has not been set up completely yet. They're still working on it, but if you're interested in the fiber weekend, I will be there, I think for 2 weeks. So make sure if you are going to come, say hi to Dennis, because I will be there for a while. But that's okay. That's what all the board members. For those of you that are a WISPA member, the WISPA campaigning period is currently going on. We have a number of nominees. I believe there's 8 people running for 5 positions in the board of directors for WISPA. That new board will take over, I believe it's going to be in August. The election results are on the 28th, and they'll take over for the most part in August. There are a few current board members that are running again to see if they can stay on the board or not. But again, we take the top 5 and run from there. With that said, the only other big news that most people should be aware of is, and unfortunately we didn't tell you last week, but this week, actually last night, was what we call Leap Second Night. And for those of you that don't know what that is, they basically add a second to the clock to keep the calendar and time all accurate. And while it's not a big deal, and most people don't think it's a big deal, there have been scattered reports already of a number of systems that either locked up or simply rebooted and or had issues. And these are routers. I'm not sitting there saying which brand. There are a number of brands that have been involved already, but a number of them have had issues in the Leap Second issue last night. There have been a number of outages in there, a number of things. We've seen some stuff from everything from routers to IPTV encoders so far. Some XDSL DSLAMs have been having some problems, and I think most of the problems are already fixed. Most of those are just simply, hey, let's reboot or restart the device, and everything comes back. Nothing mission critical, but it is some type of issue. So just in case you're wondering why you may have had some type of issue late last night, or basically whenever the time in the clock rolled over 0 GMT, there is a reason for that. Let's see here. What else we got? I believe October 1st is still the Form 477 deadline for filing. So that's only a couple months away, isn't it?
Yeah.
So definitely remind everybody that you do need to do that. That is a requirement. As a ISP, you have to fill it out. Go from there. There are several WISPA vendor members, including Link Technologies, that can help you with getting that done if you need to. But, of course, make sure you take a look at it.
Right. That's glitch sounds like what we were all facing at Y2K when it was the end of the world, if you remember. But it's funny how nothing ever manifested itself there, and then something simple as adding a second to the time clock has caused some grief, not end of world grief, but it's interesting that we were all considering, oh God, it's going to be the end of the world when Y2K happens, and nothing happened.
Yep, but that's just something that is going on, and most people didn't. There haven't been a whole. It's not like a widespread thing. It's not like everybody's saying, oh, there's all kinds of issues, but there has been a number of issues, and it's not that it's a major issue. It is just there have been some outages, some things that have occurred, and a lot of people are looking at the Leap Second issue. So just keep that in mind.
Hey, I know that you're not on you are on the board of directors with WISPA, and I know you're not on the agenda board, but do you have any idea of what some of the ideas that for breakout sessions that spark your interest, or do you even know?
The answer to that is there have been quite a few comments, and there's been a very big discussion on the WISPApalooza session topics. I do know there's going to be some IPv6. I believe one of Aaron's, either his CEO or one of the CTO of Aaron is probably going to be out there. Just looking here, I know they're going to be talking about Spectrum. They always had the Spectrum update, which is always good. If you give me a second here, I'm going to see if I can find some of these. Way too many emails sometimes, if you know what I mean.
No, I get you. And one thing I want to throw out there while you're looking is to see what sparks your interest. Dennis mentioned that there's folks running for the board of directors with WISPA, and today's show is basically Dennis and I blathering on, and I think it'll be a good show. I want to talk about IPv6 deployment and how it can work, kind of the nuts and bolts, but also if there are any guys running for the board that are listening to the show today, if you would like to call in and talk to us about what you would like to see happen with WISPA and what you would bring to the table by being on the board, we'd happily accept your phone call and divert our attention to such. So if you guys are listening and you want to campaign on our show, we are open for you guys to call in, and we'd be happy to listen.
Guess that means I need to start my phone.
Yeah.
So the phone call. But there have been lots of, going back to the tracks, obviously lots of IPv6 stuff is going to be probably one of those big things. And that's actually, this is a really good topic, because the total remaining inventory for Aaron has, in the past, 2 weeks since we had Aaron on, has just dwindled so quickly. The example I'm going to tell everybody right now, as of this moment, currently there are 59/23s and 437/24s. That is 0.00847 IPv4 space allowed. And one of my other customers actually was wanting to get a /21 and apply for that. There is no /21s, and even if you qualified, Aaron will not break it up for you, so you can't get 4/23s or however many /24s you need. It will be only, they'll basically say, no, you do qualify for a /21, but we don't have one, so we can't give you one. And the only thing you can do is literally ask them, you have to resubmit a new request and say, I only want a /23. And again, there's 59 of them left total in North America. So those are going to be going very, very quickly as well. And you can always see this information. You can see all that information, what is left at aaron.net as well. So just keep that in mind. Going back to your session topic question, I'm going to do some. I have a good listing here. I just haven't found the thing yet. But there have been quite a few comments and inquiries about that. I do know that they're going to do quite a few sessions simultaneously. And if I get to my list, or if my here it is, lots of ideals here. Just going to kind of read through some of these. We're looking at maybe doing a HR day, finance day, marketing day. Plus, we also have the regulatory, business, and tech as well. There's going to be up to 5 sessions at once this year, because we want to get lots and lots of good stuff. We're going to have WISP documentation, compliance, Title II, Spectrum updates, as I said, OSPF, advanced BGP, installer training for professional installations, non-line of sight communications, key performance indicators, hiring, do's, don'ts, employee handbooks, safety programs with OSHA. Good topic here. The art of selling. That's a good one. managing your image on social media, referral programs, marketing on a dime, managing your business from top to bottom, inventory management, selling your company, strategic planning for your business, Hatfield and McCoy, dealing with your neighboring WISP. There's a good one.
Yeah.
And, these are just some of the topics. A lot of these have been shared with the members list, and members have commented. There's been over 80 emails, or 88 emails, I think, bouncing around between those. So all of these are really great topics, and we're going to be sitting there putting them together and putting them into their proper time slots. And one of the problems that we have is we only have 3 days for this show, and we have 1,200 people. And if you figure that up, you have maybe 5 sessions per day times your 3 days, so there's 15. So we're going to have almost about 50, 60 sessions, maybe up to 70 sessions total throughout those 3 days. But even if you have that many and you divide that by, say, the existing number, which is like 1,200, that's not a whole lot of sessions. That's not a whole lot of options for everybody. So you may want to send, both yourself and one of your business partners or your marketing person, etc.
And I know the Wispalooza folks, they try to record all the sessions. That's what was really helpful for me, because I can't go to all these wonderful sessions and learn what everyone has to say. And I'm able to look at the recordings of those sessions and glean stuff off of those, even though I can't make them all, even though I'd like to.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems we're going to see here, and this is just another, it actually happened at the last WISP America, et cetera, is that other than the presentations being made available, there's not going to be any type of recording most likely for these. Just simply put, it's very expensive to do, and it doesn't really generate any income.
Right.
So, the whole point is, and I'll tell everybody this very, very bluntly, the sessions are a great resource, but coming there and talking with other operators, you will find out more information, hands down. That right there is half of what the show is getting to meet your fellow WISP operators and your fellow operators and talk to them about specific issues and hurdles that you may have. And that is really what a lot of the Wispapalooza is about.
For sure. And, of course, we'll be broadcasting from the show as well.
Yeah, we should be doing a show broadcast on Wednesday, hopefully at the same time, 11 a.m. We haven't got that far yet to know what's going on, to find out if we can do that, but that is our goal anyway.
Well, let's start the show off with the topic of discussion. 2 weeks ago, like you said, we had the Aaron folks on, and they piqued my interest. And in reality, I believe I have to go this route regardless. And after I put a few projects that I've invested my time into wrapping them up, I'm going to be going to IPv6 and running a dual stack, if you will. And Dennis has deployed this, and he makes it sound like it's pretty darn easy. I just, I look at it like this. If someone else can do it, I can do it too with a little bit of guidance. I mean, I imagine it's just like IPv4, only with a lot more numbers and letters included in the IP. But Dennis, from start to finish, I want to hire you to help me shepherd me through this process. What are the things that you suggest I do to save myself some money? And then what part do you come in and you help show us how to cookie cutter build something?
Well, unfortunately, everybody thinks everything can be cookie cutter, and it's not. Every device is going to have to be configured differently because the IPs are different, etc. Now, a lot of the things are the same. As far as Link Technologies Incorporated, what we would do is we basically log into your routers and we deploy V6 for you. In other words, other than you getting us the network topology and the information that we need to be able to accurately size your subnets and deploy your subnets, we would simply configure the devices as needed. That is what we do. We don't sit there and unfortunately we can't sit there and teach everybody how to do what we do, but that is the goal. I mean, as far as us deploying it, again, it's actually not too difficult. We've done that. The V6 space is a little bit different because the routing principles are the same. The size of the blocks are really the big difference, and then we also have the letters in there. But again, that just goes to the size of the block, not necessarily the routing difference. Routing still works the same. It's not anything different. You still have multiple routing protocols, and whenever you deploy a IPv6 network like this, you're typically going to do what we call dual stack. And this is where you deploy IPv4 and IPv6 simultaneously. They are completely separate stacks. They do not operate together in any way, so keep that in mind. Unfortunately, with Microtech anyway, we do not have any 6-to-4 translators yet. We can run IPv6 over IPv4, but we don't have what we call a native translator. So 6-to-4 translator basically sits there and says, if I'm running IPv6 only, let's translate that to, and I want to get to a v4 address. Basically, think of it as a NAT, but we translate from a v6 to a single natted public IP, and then we IPv4 IP, and then go out. The other big difference is there's no such thing as NAT in IPv6. So, with that said, you have to be, well, not necessarily a little bit more careful, but your customers definitely need to be a little bit, they need to know that, hey, IPv6 is putting publics directly on their devices, and it's up to you as a add-on if you wish to sell them some type of firewall that will help them. A lot of people will sit there and use IPv4, public, single public, and then they have a CPE router or a home bought router, SOHO router. And with NAT, you actually have a level of security, as in the only device that's really truly public is the router. Now, NAT is not necessarily a security device, but in many cases it performs adequately enough for many residential users. When we go IPv6, that's not there. So you have to be really careful with that. And it's not necessarily something that you as an ISP need to, I'm not going to say worry or stress over, but you do need to think about how can we help our customers protect themselves and make some money in the process. So it's very easy that, hey, now we're going to start giving you IPv6 addresses and go from there. But whenever we look at IPv6, since we don't have NAT, we have another thing called prefix delegation, PD. And prefix delegation is kind of like DHCP, with the exception that we are delegating an entire prefix to a DHCP v6 client. So as a home router that supports v6, what it's going to do is it's going to be a DHCP client on the WAN port, and it requests a prefix. So think of it as a /64. It's a lot of IPs. It requests that /64, and then that /64 is delegated to the IP on the front end of that router, and then that router puts the /64 on the LAN portion, and then continues on and issues out IPs via stateless autoconfig. So all that is done, but that is the difference between v4 and v6. In v4, you're typically natting. In v6, you're going to be routing, and the router should, if they support v6, will know how to route, but they actually get that entire prefix. So instead of this would be an example. Let's put it in a comparison or in a term comparable to IPv4. What we have is in IPv4, usually we have a /24 behind the customer. So what would happen is you would assign that /24 automatically to every customer. That's very similar to what IPv6 is going to do. Except that process through the prefix delegation is all done automatically through the DHCP process.
So each individual device will have a public IP. Is that kind of what you're saying? So my iPhone, when I'm hooked up to my router,
will have a public IP. Will have its own individual IPv6 IP address.
Okay. How do we prevent servers with a public IP from being put on our network? The
firewalling and such, just like you would do with any standard IPv4 IP, would still apply. You still have to build that. With Microtech anyway, you would still have to build that per whatever system that you want. So if you want to block all inbound connections, you can. If you only want to block certain ports and protocols, you can. Okay, but that it would be built in the IPv6 firewall as a normal service.
On your border router, or do you put that out on the edge?
Again, it depends on what your business model is. Technically, there's no reason to do so. It's all a business decision. Now, I want to toss this right out there, is that technically doing so would violate Title II restrictions, because reasonable network management, you say no running of servers, but no running of servers is a business decision, not a technical decision.
Right.
Okay? Therefore, technically, it would be a violation of your Title II systems. Now, with that said, some people can say, hey, we run wireless infrastructure. If they run a server that adds additional load on our network, which would mean it's a technical issue. But that's up to you and the FCC to fight out.
Well, you mentioned something that really stuck to me a few shows back about people running servers on their network. You know, when people are using the internet, it's for their use. When you put a server on your network, it's not only becoming for their use, it's becoming for everyone in the world's use.
Yeah, whoever wants to use that. Now, keep in mind, I mean, you sit there and there's two sides to the coin. You sit there and you take that and say, hey, I have a small business, and I want to access my DVRs. Now, is that your usage, or is that somebody else's usage? You see what I'm saying? So, that's a good example. Another good example is, hey, I have an Xbox, and I want to not see the NAT strict, and I want to be able to host games and stuff like that. Now, is that your usage, or is that everybody else's usage? Now, I think what most people, when they look at blocking servers, etc., really are looking for is they're looking for, if you're not home, you shouldn't, maybe if you started to download, yes, but if you're not home, there shouldn't be new connections coming into you requesting services that you have.
Yes.
Okay? But, on the flip side, what are those new connections? Are they just from you? Are they from other people? I'm going to use this as an example. I take a lot of my DVDs and my Blu-rays, and I rip them and I put them into my Plex server, and I sit there and watch them at my house all day, whenever I need to. It's no big deal. Now, I go over to my parents' house, I can hit their Plex button right on their TV, and I can put in my information, I can log in, and I can stream a movie from my server. Is that considered my usage or not? Okay. Now, I can do that because the protocols are open and I have a public IP. But, again, this is kind of one of those, question mark items. Where do you draw the line in that? And the FCC has specifically ruled that reasonable network management must have a technical reason, not a business reason. So, obviously, there's two sides to the coin. There's two sides to the argument, but those are the types of things that everybody will have to consider. And the FCC hasn't given us more information. The FCC hasn't told us, here's what's going on. And because of that, we don't know. We have no more information of what is or what is not going on in those areas. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they simply don't have the technical expertise to understand what an ISP goes through.
Well, and I'm not sitting there saying that, but what's going to happen is that eventually the FCC is going to have to rule on this. Someone's going to file a complaint. The FCC is going to take that complaint, and then they're going to go through the process, and then they're going to make it a little bit stricter. So, it is... Unfortunately, as ISPs currently, all we have is reasonable network management, but it can't have a business reason.
Right.
What does that mean? Got me. To me, it's still up in the air.
Well, to me, that means if an individual's connection is causing grief for everyone else, then there's cause to act.
I would agree with that. But as we go forward, we will of course always find people who disagree with that, if you know what I mean.
Right.
So we'll have to see how the whole process pans out. And, no, I'm not sitting there saying anyone is doing anything wrong by any means, but it is an issue. So
now my next question is, so I go to Aaron, I'm going to sign up today and get my minimum space that I need, which is like 100 billion connection or IPs, I imagine, for the minimum. So I go forward and do that. What I kind of like about this is it's isolating people down to their devices, and that ties into our conversation last week about the copyright infringement stuff and having to deal with that kind of stuff. When you open this up, then, you know, those individuals that are doing this nefarious stuff are identified. I kind of like that in a way, but it adds to the headache of being an ISP. Would you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, it is not a closed loop, you know, and what you're going to be able to do is you're going to be able to see which /2064 it's going to, and then hopefully be able to, you know, move that back to whoever it needs to be. But in the grand scheme of thing, you know, keep in mind that there is lots of, how can I put this? In the grand scheme of things, keep in mind is that those types of systems, the IPv6 is still not mainstream. It's going to quickly become mainstream. All of a sudden, people are going to be asking for it. Okay, there have been some very good conversations about IPv6 on a number of lists and such. And what we really come down to is we have not seen yet the IPv6 deployment reach a capacity yet that is, you know, people are going to sit there and go, hey, let's get it out and we have to have it. But we are quickly becoming, with IPv4 being almost inaccessible now, we are quickly becoming to the point of, hey, we don't have the availability, and all of a sudden we're going to see lots and lots and lots of people out there. Basically, they're going to start being natted, and we're going to have that. And shortly thereafter, we're going to start seeing lots and lots of people deploying V6, and we really need to get that going. Now, we also have the other issue. You know, why do we not have IPv6? Well, there's a number of them. You know, one, we have to get our heads wrapped around IPv6 subnetting, how it works. Even though this is just larger, it's not really overly complicated. The next thing is do we have to pay for network upgrades to support IPv6? And Stephen, me and you had talked earlier about IPv6 before the show, and we actually have, you know, Microtech has pretty much full support for V6. Is it perfect? No, it's not. There are some issues with OSPF v3 that is not complete yet, but it is coming along. But the CPEs and APs, etc., all support V6 quite well. Whenever we look at other devices, so we're going to look at Ubiquiti and some of these other manufacturers of gear, Bitlomat, Motorola, etc., we see very limited V6 support, if any, in some cases. So, you know, having the time to do major network upgrades, what happens if your Ubiquiti client doesn't support V6 and doesn't support V6 PD in prefix delegation? Well, now we're back to the point, hey, we have the V6, but we can't give it to the customer because the CPE device doesn't support it.
Right, I mean, that's a concern of mine. Got a bunch of Ubiquiti out there acting as a router in a double-netted network, and, you know, I'm deploying Microtechs out there as client radios, so that would be supported, but my concern is and, you know, I've got people with Netgears and Linksys and all that other stuff, not sure if they support V6 or not, but that's another thing I want to look at is, I mean, am I looking at massive truck rolls and upgrades of the entire network that I can't afford?
Well, and that's definitely a really, really good question. I mean, I do not have, and I would love to see someone chime in, but you know, I know Ubiquiti has DHCP PD on the EdgeMax products, but I don't know what they actually have on the CPE CPE.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a major issue, is that if you're, you know, now if you're bridging your CPEs, then it's not a big deal because your V4, you can still use V4 for management, but the but the V6 can go back to the router. And if you're deploying Microtech routers, then definitely Microtech has that PD support to push that IPv6 addressing out.
Right,
so,
that's where I have my conundrum. I can put everyone in bridge mode. That's not a big deal, but having to deploy or go to everyone's door and program in IPv6 into the WAN side of their router. And like I said, most of the people that I support have Netgears or Linksys or Belkin of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm hearing from you is the EdgeMax that can do the PD, and of course Microtech does. But I mean, my concern is having to roll out to everyone's house with a Microtech, an inexpensive Microtech router to provide them the internet they need via IPv6.
Mm-hmm. Right, and that's really the question. I can't answer that because I don't use the nano stations and those types of devices that much. But the question is that does their AirMax product line support V6 PD? And that's going to be a question that we're going to have to look into for you.
And here was another thing that we talked about before the show. If you've implemented a ISP billing solution, do those billing solutions support IPv6? I mean, do the billing management units that these guys are selling you to help throttle traffic, do they even support it? When you transition, you might want to consider that as well. Am I right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we try not to name any names here, but there are a number of products out there that are billing solutions that probably have no V6 support whatsoever. And on top of that, if you have a piece of hardware that you have to put in line, you may not have the ability to route your V6 traffic through that device. So it is of a concern, and that's, like I said, this is the issues on deploying V6. One, we have to understand how it works. That's easy. We can do that. Having equipment and software that supports V6. That's another one. On top, the next one is being able to properly document the network and keep track of V6. And that is a concern of how do you track your IPs. You now have a huge amount of IP addresses. How do you track those? Okay? Yeah. And then on top of that, probably the last issue that really comes up is the lack of time to create a formalized list to actually implement this, and the think of it as the to-do list to deploy it.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably where you're at, whereas you don't have really time probably to deploy it, and that's where a company like Link Technologies or some other consulting company may be able to help you in that we can sit there, turn it around, and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
At least give you the peace of mind that, hey, it's deployed, But right. These are the types of things that we are having issues with, or that IPv6 will have issues with, I should rephrase that. And going forward, as a ISP, you will need to understand and you will need to continue building your network based on this. And you just have to realize that, hey, it's not going away. It's not going to go away. It's not like magically we are not going to be able to, that it's not going to be out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a grill at the front door.
It's coming. It's coming. I'll be honest with you, it's coming very, very, very quick.
I mean, we had a show back where we talked about bridging versus routing, and I remember seeing at last Wispalooza your shirts, "Friends don't let friends bridge." Same thing. This is coming down the pike. I see it. I'm going to have to implement it, and I just glad that you're there to help shepherd me through the process when I go to do it. That's really helpful. And like you said, there's other consultants out there that can help you do that. But thanks to this show, I've gotten a lot more information on things I need to be doing. Otherwise, I'm going to be dead in the water and going to Wispalooza and the like.
Exactly. And like I said, Wispapalooza, there's probably going to be plenty of IPv6 information out there. There will be plenty of people talking about that. I'm sure there will be sessions as well. But man, it's time. It's been time, and now we're getting down to that crunch period.
Mm-hmm.
You either have to do it or not.
Right. And do you think that this could put an ISP out of business, Dennis?
Not exactly this second by any means. We're going to see lots of businesses do IPv4 NAT. Most people say carrier grade NAT. There's really no such thing. It's just large scale NAT. Mm-hmm. But we're going to start seeing that quite a bit, and because of that, we're going to have more and more issues. You're going to have customers calling, "Oh, my Xbox shows NAT strict," and all this kind of stuff. But if you can support V6 right away, almost everything, I was even thinking about this. Pretty much every device in the past 2 years, your cell phones, etc., all of those types of things really support V6 already. I look at my cell phone right here, and I have a V6 address on it. So it is what it is, but that is what's coming down. Mm-hmm. So get ready, start deploying it, get it done.
Go to aaron.net and sign up and get your /64 or whatever they're handing out that's minimum. So before the show, we were talking about, you threw out there problems with VoIP and the like. What are you seeing?
Oh, I mean, there's always there's always problems with VoIP. The people try to make this issue of how can I put it? They try to make it. They try to say, "Hey, my VoIP sucks. What can I do? What kind of auto magic can we do?" And the simple fact is that VoIP is not auto magic. Okay, you can put tons of policies and procedures in place, but the connection just may be that crappy. And one of the things I see quite often is we see people putting VoIP customers on 900 megahertz. 900 megahertz by its nature is going to fluctuate a lot with lots of jitter, and that's very, very bad for VoIP. We see the same thing with other products, but in the end, the goal here is that your VoIP needs to be, you can put prioritization on, but it really comes down to, if you have a good backhaul system and you're not overloaded, then you shouldn't have VoIP problems.
Right.
But what we do find, we do find quite a few WISPs in this issue here, in which, and this goes beyond VoIP, but they have 6 sectors already up on a tower. They don't have any more spectrum left in the 5 gig. They can't deploy anything more. They got the sectors loaded up. They don't have enough sectors, enough frequency spectrum to be able to deliver enough bandwidth in those particular cases. And we're seeing that over and over and over again. So,
but I mean, in reality, it's not the sheer quantity of bandwidth to a client's place that restricts the
VoIP.
The telephone
it's the quality.
Call. I mean, it's like you said, it's the jitter and the latency that we're seeing. And of course, when people load up a circuit, a 1 meg circuit with 20 devices, of course, voice is going to suffer, even if you do prioritize it. Is that correct?
Well, there are things you can do for that if the bandwidth is available and the circuit is clean. What we end up seeing is that VoIP, your standard SIP calls, I mean, you can do 120, you can do 1,200 seconds on a SIP call. It'll work. Will the humans like it? No, they won't. Why? Because there's too much delay. They don't like that delay.
Yeah.
Okay, and they don't find that acceptable. So keep that in mind. But the difference is that out-of-order packets are probably your biggest fear, and that's where you get jitter. Differences from transmission time from 1 second to the next. Okay, so if your normal pings are 5 or 6 milliseconds to your AP, and then they jump up to 200, then they come down to 40, then up to 200 to 300, that is your fear. That is your issue.
Right.
And the problem is with the half duplex medium that we have, we don't have a good way to handle that type of traffic in any way, shape, or fashion in an orderly fashion. They have to wait for their time slot to come up before they can transmit, and it is what it is. So the problem you see is you see people overloading sectors. They have all kinds of strange things, or their backhauls are overloaded, and they wonder why VoIP don't work. VoIP's not going to work because your backhauls are overloaded. The big key, and there's not much you can do about it. I mean, if you know you have a dedicated point-to-point, and you know you have a consistent XYZ bandwidth, then that's one thing. But as WISPs, we actually have to worry about signal quality and flexibility. So if you have a nice Mimosa link that you put up that gets 200 meg, okay, that doesn't mean it's going to get 200 meg tonight at 5 p.m. Why? Because there's other radios chattering more, and the overall quality goes down. Hence, you have less overall throughput. Mm-hmm. Makes sense? So yeah. This is the problem that you get with these types of systems. And whenever you try to build a QoS system by using Microtech or any other platform, it doesn't matter. You have to base that QoS. The QoS is based on, hey, I need to guarantee bandwidth to a certain application. But if the circuit physically doesn't have the bandwidth available, you can't do anything about it. So
that's pointless.
Right. Even if you get 200 meg during normal testing, then at night that circuit really drops down to only 175. Well, all of your QoS that's been built for 200 meg is useless. Mm-hmm. Okay? The only thing you can do is say, now I only have 175 meg, build a QoS on that. Now you go, well, what about that extra 25 meg that I get normally, but during peak times I don't get? Well, you lose it. So these are just kind of the issues that you have to worry about. Your best bet is to have allowed for additional capacity in those systems, to have margin in that case.
Yeah.
Okay? And the problem we're starting to see is people don't have it. Okay? Now, there are other things we can do. I mean, your radio should have some type of prioritization, things like that, and that can help. But you have to, every device from point A to point B to point C to point D, all the way out to the customer, has to have all that in there for you to be able to properly manage it. And a lot of times, some of the products just don't have the ability because the data that's being sent and received is too unknown. We don't know when they're requesting data. We don't know when they're going to receive data. Therefore, it's really hard for us to schedule that.
Mm-hmm. And is it true that SIP really likes a public number?
No, it don't. On the server side, yes, but not on the private side.
Okay, so it'll flow regardless if you're double natted or not.
Well, double nat is probably not a good ideal, but yeah, I mean, your VoIP server should be outside of both double nat. Most double nat, I can't sit there and say it will or will not work. It should work.
Right. Well, that's if you're running your own. I mean, for us that tell people, yeah, bondage should work fine. It's kind of a bandwidth pig, or your Verizon cell booster should work. But like I tell them, I don't support that application. The only application I support is my email.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Don't have the time or resources to worry myself about people's individuals' applications that they want online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's that's a business decision. Are you going to sit there and support users? I mean, back in the dial-up days, I know people that supported, you can't get to this website, or you're trying to get your email to work, or you're trying to get XYZ application to work, and they went bend over backwards for them. But the simple fact is that that had nothing to do with their internet service. You're a transit provider, or a transport provider, I should rephrase that. You should provide the pipe. That's it.
Exactly. Well, and plus back in those days, if you recall, there wasn't a whole lot of apps. The word app wasn't even coined.
Yeah, well, there you go, too. Good point.
So anything else on IPv6? I think you've given me a good start to developing what I need to do. I just need to go to Aaron and request some space, and then when I get all my ducks in a row, give you a holler and have you look at my topology and start helping me deploy, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be too terribly difficult. Most of them, it's really more about the upstreams, getting your IPs and stuff like that, and going from there. You will have to, even though you get your IPs, you will have to get your AS as well if you don't already have one.
Mm-hmm. Well, didn't he mention you don't have to have an AS?
The answer is you do not have to have an AS, but if you are going to get your own Aaron block, typically you are going to need to get your own AS to peer with your upstream.
Gotcha.
Which is really what you want to do anyway.
Right.
I mean, there is ways for your upstream to announce it on your behalf, etc. But then it looks like it's coming from your upstream, it's not coming from you.
Gotcha.
So later on, BGP configurations are a little bit more complicated. But you can easily say special routing circumstance, I need a BGP peer with IPv6, and that should qualify you for an AS.
Okay. Anything else on IPv6 and the transition? I mean, it's something that it's the huge gorilla at the door that needs to be addressed, and I suggest, just from a layman's standpoint, start looking into it, folks. This is the way it's going to go, and IPv4 is a goner.
Yeah, it's as the Aaron had said, the gentleman from Aaron, they're quickly dwindling. The IPv4 is quickly dwindling, and I'm just going to give you my opinion on the matter of what's going to happen here. Obviously, Aaron's going to support V4 transition, or being able to sell and transfer resources between organizations. We already see a price of leasing an IPv4/24. Okay, so a /24, and I'm just going to tell you from 256 IPs. They're trying to get $11 an IP. So they're going to, what I've been seeing is, figure $2,800 a year to lease a /24 from somebody. And that assumes that $11 per IP price is before we have run out. Before you could go to Aaron. Right now you can go to Aaron and get a /24 still, as long as you qualify. What happens whenever Aaron stops issuing /24s? What happens whenever there is no more land to get? What happens with that land price? Goes up.
Supply and demand.
Yes, exactly. So what we have here is we have the supply is dwindling, but we are not to the point of they're still there, so we're not sitting there going, hey, let's get a whole bunch of new IPs, okay, or let's start selling IPs. Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem being is that now, as this continues on, and once Aaron really runs out, now all of a sudden we have a market, and that price is going to go up substantially. At least I believe it will. And whenever we look at large ISPs, smart IPs, etc., we have an issue that most of these big companies, these guys that make millions and billions, these guys are going to be the ones that are buying IPs or leasing those IPs. As smaller WISPs, we're going to be really, really hard to get into the market of being able to purchase those or to lease those. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So that is our issue. Now, when we, just so everybody knows, where do we get that $11 a meg? Why is that a starting point, or where do we get that?
Or $11 an IP.
$11 an IP. The real reason is a few years back, Microsoft paid Nortel for their legacy space. Nortel had a big pool of IPv4s, like 666,000 IPs, and they paid $7.5 million for those. If you add it up, $11.25 per IP.
Did they lease those, or did they buy them?
That was an outright purchase.
Okay.
So whenever we look at this, we're going to start seeing, even if you could purchase IPs for that, okay, that's still $2,800. Let's say you need a /24. Can you afford $2,800 to buy another 256 IPs? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know, but the market is going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, and that market is going to go no anywhere but down. So that's what we really see. What I see is going to happen. Because of that, IPs are going to go up. As they go up, they're going to become unobtainable for smaller operators. And now we are left with V6. The big problem you're going to have is these web hosting companies, these guys that have to have IPv4s. And eventually, we're going to start seeing IPs move around a little bit. I bet you within the next year, we're going to see a significant uptake in IPv6 routes on the internet because they're just not out there. They have to be. So.
Yep. All your server hosting people are going to, if they already haven't, like we've mentioned before, all the big guys do already. But the small guys, if they haven't, they're going to. So it just makes sense to start looking into it, folks.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, I'm just going to give you some examples here. Let me see if I can find this. We had a good chart. We got about 23,000 prefixes. About 23,000 prefixes, and this is up, from the beginning of the year. We just keep going up. We keep going up. We keep going up, and at the beginning of the year we were at I'd say 18,000, I think. But as we keep adding IPs, it's going to keep going up, and that's a good thing. You know what I'm saying? There's definitely not it's definitely not a bad thing out there.
Yeah, fortunately, we're involved in a high growth industry. It's just a matter of keeping up with that high growth technologically.
Exactly, and we're gonna keep seeing it, and we're gonna keep seeing what's going on. But all we can do is keep it up.
Yep. Well, Dennis, I think this is a very informative show talking about IPv6 and the route I need to go, and hopefully some of you guys have gleaned some of the information Dennis has given us. Like I said, this is a gorilla at the door that you need to address. I just want to thank Dennis for hosting the show or producing the show, and I want to thank Dennis for his insight and knowledge. And Dennis, you got anything else?
No. I mean, I think we're pretty good. Just to give you everybody an example, I mean, there are plenty of charts out there, but BGP entries, the fib table, I mean, back in 07, I mean, we were under, actually back in 2011, we were still under, at the beginning of 2011, we were under 5,000 route entries, and at the end of 2011, we were almost at 7,500. At the beginning of 2013, we're almost at 12,000, and I mean it's a think of it as a good 60-degree angle. That's how many IPv6 entries we're adding. So keep up the good work, everybody. But if you haven't already done it, start on it. Yep.
Well, again, thank you. You guys go out and have a great 4th of July. And Dennis, if you want to wrap up the show, also sign up for Wispalooza to save yourself some money, guys.
Excellent. I will wrap up the show. Thank you very much, Stephen, and we are out of here.
All right.
Thank you for listening to ISP Radio. We hope you've gained new insights and additional wisdom in our industry as well as your business. Please remember to visit our show sponsors via the links on ispradio.com. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, contact us at sales@ispradio.com. Now go out there and push those packets as fast as you can. Good luck and Godspeed.